For centuries, mining had been conducted throughout the ancient hills of Jerusalem, most of it deep within the ground. Some shafts went as deep as 115 feet beneath the surface, cut in impeccable circles beneath the ancient stones of the city. For centuries, silence kept a secret. A mystery whispered over time. Legends told of a secret chamber, the tomb of King Solomon, the great and wise king whose riches and power once built empires. Scholars wrote it off as myth, adventurers looked in vain, and treasure hunters came back with nothing. But when a ferocious storm hit the hills beyond the ancient city, something remarkable was revealed. A tunnel never marked on any map, plugged so securely that time itself appeared to have kept it safe. What was on the other side was not just rock and dirt, but so much more: treasure, witness, and wisdom etched into the earth's very bones. It was a tale that had endured 5 millennia in secrecy, awaiting discovery. Within the tunnel, carvings unseen since kings' times covered the walls, with artifacts unbelievable and promising a mystery greater than gold itself. This was not myth. Tonight, the world would venture into Solomon's tomb and face secrets never intended to be uncovered. For thousands of years, the Solomon name has had a reputation unlike any other. The Bible speaks of him as a sovereign of unparalleled wisdom, a king whose wealth was spread across continents, and a builder who constructed a temple so grand that its golden walls reflected the light of heaven. His 10th century BCE reign was Israel's golden age. But even with the magnificence of his existence, history is silent on his death. Where did Solomon die? The Bible offers but enigmatic suggestions. No tomb, no inscription, no sign, just nothing, as the earth had devoured the recall of his grave. It was that silence that spawned centuries of fixation. Crusaders excavated under Jerusalem looking for a vault of riches. Legend said there were tunnels that were cursed to fall in on trespassers, a tomb glittering so heavily with gold that it blinded robbers. Solomon's resting place was said by some to be greater than a grave, more like a library of forbidden knowledge, a room containing the secrets of the stars and of God. Yet no evidence was ever discovered. By the 19th century, adventurers wielding ancient scrolls and rough maps combed the city of David, to no avail. Most declared Solomon's tomb a myth. But even while academics lost hope, travelers at the Western Wall whispered prayers, hoping that somewhere beneath their feet, Israel's wisest king lay sleeping. Archaeology did finally authenticate Solomon's kingdom, his mines in Timnah, his extensive trade routes spanning continents, his ships sailing into the unknown. If there was a kingdom, then of course there had to be the king's tomb. The legend would not die. And then arrived a storm. A rainstorm that broke into a hillside outside Jerusalem and revealed something left undisturbed for 3,000 years. A tunnel cut by purposeful hands, sealed by time and silence. The silence was shattering. At first sight, the hillside in Silwan looked like any other, weathered limestone and scrubby vegetation. But when the rains raged through the slope, they uncovered a black emptiness. What looked like erosion was shortly thereafter shown to be otherwise. Dr. Layla Morgan's archaeological expedition identified sharp corners and straight edges hidden below the rock. Proof of human planning. This was no cave of accident. It was purposeful. The first descent was uncomfortable. Jerusalem's underworld is lined with cisterns and aqueducts, but these tunnels were something different. Some extended outward only to abruptly stop. Others wound back on themselves in perfect circles. It was a maze, constructed not to lead explorers, but confuse them. Ceilings had cracks that appeared to be designed to fall at the slightest provocation. This was not weakness in construction. It was a defense system. Someone who constructed these tunnels had anticipated intruders. Before long, the team found markings, ancient Hebrew carvings buried under layers of mud. Cleaned, 7 lines and 7 symbols emerged, repeated and repeated. To Dr. Morgan, the message was clear. The first temple was constructed in 7 years. 7 was Solomon's number. The deeper they went, the more intentional construction was. Illusory doorways, dead-end corridors cut with precision, passageways that appeared to dare them on. It seems like someone built this place to resist. One archaeologist breathed. As news broke out, the authorities increased security. Looters, zealots, even foreign governments might be dangerous. But the most dangerous was within, the mountain itself. Every groan of sliding rock served as a reminder that they were trespassers in a fortress constructed by time. Finally, the passage came to an end in an immaculate stone slab, so well fitted that it could have been a part of the wall itself. No seams, no cracks, no vulnerability. The air hung heavy, imbued with centuries of silence. Behind it lay the truth of Solomon's tomb. For weeks, the team stood in front of the slab, aware that it was no common obstruction. It was a message. This is not meant to be opened. Dr. Morgan handled it with extreme care. Laser scanners followed each groove. Engineers modeled every conceivable movement, and the crew worked in hushed silence, knowing that a single bad choice could send the whole hillside crashing down around them. Night after night, Morgan pored over a fragment of Hebrew text nearby, verses that quoted gates that opened only to wisdom and stones pointed by stars. To her, these were not poetic clues. They were blueprints. Then, one evening, the ground creaked. Dust poured down as the slab moved ever so slightly. Panic streamed through the tunnel, but the rock withstood, and from inside a blast of cold, stagnant air, 3 millennia untouched. When at last the slab began to open, flashlights cut through the blackness. Their rays landed on golden, urns-lined walls. They had discovered it. Solomon's tomb. Ornaments in the form of lions and palm trees encircled a stately menorah that remained erect against millennia of silence. Shattered jars released a faint scent of frankincense and saffron into the air, while silks, though aged, remained whole, speaking of commerce once spanning far-off kingdoms. The team watched in awe. Solomon's tomb had been written off as myth for centuries, but as they entered it, millennia of dust gave way to irrefutable evidence. The legend was no longer legend. It existed. The gold glinted at the beam of flashlights, but it wasn't treasure that drew their eyes. It was the walls. As the dust cleared, complex shapes revealed themselves, lines incised into limestone, spirals wound with mathematical exactness, and designs that appeared more akin to formulas and less like ornament. Triangles, proportions, and perfect spirals suggested a design centuries in advance of its time. They appeared to be symbols of devotion at first, but the more the archaeologists learned about them, the more evident it became that they were something else, maybe directions. In the middle of the northern wall, there was a 6-pointed star, carved sharply and intentionally, dominating the room with its presence. To contemporary sight, it was the Star of David, but this was older, unrefined, and nearer to ancient mythology the Seal of Solomon, a sign said to dominate spirits and open up forbidden lore. And here it was, cut into stone. In the corner of the room, a pile of clay tablets uncovered another secret. One tablet spoke of dimensions of a magnificent temple, its figures running exactly parallel with the biblical Book of Kings. A further tablet was even more bizarre. Its writing refused to be translated, its grammar distorted, and created sentences which read like a cipher. The star turns, the light unlocks. Was this a metaphor, a ritual, or a cryptic set of instructions? The atmosphere became thick with tension. Then there was a discovery that stunned everyone. Half buried under rubble, pushed against the south wall, lay a small iron-bound chest with faint gold still visible. Nobody ventured to touch it. Dr. Morgan has documented in her diary how it was like intruding into someone's memory. They took pictures and documented it. But one thing was sure, it was not supposed to be opened lightly whatever held inside. However, the walls still had secrets to reveal. On the eastern wall of the chamber, under centuries of grime, there were faint scratches picked up by the light. To begin with, they resembled scars of erosion, but, as worked upon tenderly, they appeared as Hebrew letters. And as the words became recognizable, the room was silent. It wasn't a cipher or riddle, it was a message. May wisdom guide my hand as stars guide sailors. The sentence was short, poetic, almost a prayer. To Dr. Morgan and her group, it seemed as if Solomon himself had spoken through the ages. By evening, pictures of the inscription were circulating throughout the academic community. Some proclaimed it to be Solomon's own signature, the first concrete evidence of his rule. Others wrote it off as a subsequent forgery, made up to justify Israel's most storied king. Religious pundits weighed in. Rabbis drew parallels with Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. Christian scholars recognized it as solid evidence of biblical authenticity. Muslim scholars associated it with the Quran's version of Suleiman, interpreting the words as a prophet's introspection inscribed in stone. While the world debated, the archaeologists uncovered another telltale discovery. Below Solomon's inscription, there was another name, Sheba. The letters were heavy, cut by the same hand. Two names out of history's most ancient legends now stood together, not bound by myth, but by stone. The Queen of Sheba, centuries trapped between history and legend, had entered the world of fact. The inscription told a trade, ivory, gold, and incense, testimony to a strong union stretching across Africa and Arabia. Solomon's wisdom, it seemed, was not only divine but cultural, a merging of nations and ideas. The revelation shook the world. Clerics saw it as divine proof. Politicians fought over the site's ownership. Scholars questioned its authenticity. But within the chamber, one truth was undeniable. It was testimony, not myth. Behind the Sheba inscription lay a thin stone partition. When it cracked open, the team discovered a miniature alcove, and in it a gold ring, weighty, primitive, and bearing a six-pointed star. Tests placed it at the 10th century BCE, Solomon's time. Was this the mythical seal of Solomon, the ring supposed to give him dominion over men and spirits? Symbol or relic? Holding it was like touching the essence of a king. The chamber uncovered more than riches. Harp, flute, and lyre carvings adorned the walls, one which was similar to the 10-string harp associated with David, Solomon's dad. Maybe this tomb was more than a vault. It was an acoustical sanctuary. When a replica harp was played back, the sound resonated eerily, as if music from another time had been awakened. But one mystery still lingered. Where was the king? No corpse, no tomb, no sign of Solomon at all. Scans suggested deeper chambers beyond reach, but such excavation would take political agreement few countries were willing to commit to. For the time being, the biggest secret remained locked away. The burial exposed Solomon's world, his riches, his wisdom, his alliances, his art, but the man himself was enigmatic. What had started out as a storm-battered hillside had turned into one of the most astonishing finds in human history. Golden objects, inscriptions, puzzles, and even possibly the Seal of Solomon, all in an unvisited chamber for millennia. And still, no one has an answer. Where is the king? With Solomon's body missing, the enigma remains as a shadow. Was his actual resting place concealed still deeper, or was his tomb purposefully unfinished, so it could never be discovered? Until now, the legend continues. The proof confirms Solomon's reign to have been more than fiction, but his not being there keeps the legend alive, a mystery lacking its last piece. And so, what do you believe? Have we indeed discovered the tomb of the wisest king, or just found history's greatest deception?